Comic.
All right, hey ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Welcome to tonight's show. This is Comic Book Radio episode 15. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. I'm discussing the Iron Age of comics. Is this the Iron Age of comics? I'm hearing this phrasing going around, not too much, but enough for me to justify talking about it. But before we start with that, let me say hello to you guys. We got Sark in the chat. What's up, Sark? Jefferson Roswell is here. Says, my Alterna summer campaign books arrived today. Thank you, Pete. Oh, thank you, Jefferson. I'm glad everything got there. Hope everything got there safe and sound, too. Nothing ruined or anything like that. So far, so good with the campaign fulfillment. I got about maybe 10 days or so to go on the summer campaign fulfillment. It's about 75% of the way there. And even after the show tonight, it's only going to be about an hour or so. I'm going to start packing up and shipping out, printing more labels tonight. So, got to get these books out there. Ara Galenian, what's up? Ara says, good evening to all. Hey, Publishing Pete, what's up? Not too much. Hope you're doing good, Ara. Buddha Bear, what's up, Buddha Bear? Hope you're doing good. We got Eric the Guapo here as well. We got Blue Teddy Narrations. What's up, Blue Teddy? Hope you're doing good. Snuggy Jr. is here as well, and so is Ben Soto. What's up, Ben Soto? Phantasmagorical. What's up, Phantasmagorical? Conspiracies and Comics is here too. So is Dark Stranger. What's up, Dark Stranger? And Metatron's Cube. What's up, Metatron? With the Dymo. I know that literally nonstop. That's how it goes, though, right? Ara says, hope to get my summer book soon. You'll be getting your summer book soon too, man. I'll probably put yours in the mail maybe Saturday. If not Saturday, maybe Monday. And then they should arrive to you very soon after that. Paladin, what's up, Paladin? Hope you're doing good. Darth Josh is here too. Jasper Plan 9, what's up, Jasper? The Beam Pad is here too. And I believe that is all the hellos for now. I don't think I missed anyone, but if I did, I apologize. All right, so since it is a comic book radio, this is the show where I open up the floor to you guys. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the topic, 15 minutes or so, give my thoughts on it, share some screenshots or not, if you will. I mean, are they screenshots? I guess I'm just sharing a screen. But this is basically what it is. I'm addressing this, all right? So I said about a year ago, I commented to someone that this age of comics is the Iron Age, since it is being forged by creators and readers with an iron will to create and read the things that matter to them. I said it's funny to see many others referring to it as the Iron Age now, too. This was like a tweet back in August or something of 2022, this year. And I talked to so many people about this kind of a thing. Some people have asked me about this age of comics. There was a video that Clint Stoker, Sweetcast, had made. And I was looking through and I was like, I know I put it as a comment too somewhere. It was actually on his video. I'm going to put his video here in the chat for you guys. There's the link. So you guys can go and check it out for yourself. He made this video August... I believe it says August 31st, 2021. Let me see. Where is that here? All right, so let me share this screen here. Because then I eventually found it. And after going through the comments I had left on several YouTube videos and whatnot, I had found it. See, August 31st, 2021. Okay. So Clint's video was about what comes after the modern age of comics. He was considering, I guess he was considering this, or maybe something a little bit before this era of comics to be modern age. All of my life, I've heard Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, then modern, current age. Even bags and boards are labeled that way. And then kind of, we're like perpetually stuck in the modern age, I guess. But to me, this is what I had said as far as what, because modern age for me, I would say, and I don't know if this is accurate in any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a historian on that level. But me personally, with my collection, I would say that probably around like 2002 to 2005, I'd say the modern age kind of starts to transition away a bit. And it doesn't happen right away. These things never happen right away. It's never an overnight transition. But for me, we've been in a postmodern age, similar to the art movement, similar to the philosophical way of thinking with postmodernism. We've been in that kind of age about 2005 to about 20, you could probably say 2020, because it's still transitioning away from it. And I do believe it's transitioning away. And I say postmodern because just like the art movement, just like the intellectual way of thinking, or some people can argue it's rather not that much of an intellectual way of thinking, but similar to those movements, there's a lot of self-referential, and I put the comment here, there's a lot of self-referential tendencies. There's deconstruction, there's rebooting, there's retconning, there's a rejection of what was established in the modern age. And in the modern age is usually an embracing towards some kind of objectivity, some kind of a standard of good, evil, normal, different, etc., etc., and not necessarily putting a morality behind normal and different, but more kind of establishing averages and standards, and that this is kind of the way. Postmodernism rejects a lot of that. Postmodernism is almost like a tendency more towards nihilism, but not as complete in its rejection. There's a lot of skepticism based on what happened before, a lot of, breaking of the rules, right? So at first, it feels like a bit rebellious. It feels a little edgy. Eventually, though, that edginess kind of comprises all of it. And it becomes kind of a sickness in a way of thinking. Because postmodernism, you tend to almost reject everything to the point in which you start rejecting defined reality itself. And you stop defining your own reality and defining who you are and defining what your art is and your storytelling capability. And you start looking at everything. It's almost like you almost give yourself a weird kind of mental illness in a way, because you almost start saying every single thing is not real in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. You start rejecting so much of everything that is objective that you no longer have a grasp of what's objective and what's real. And all of a sudden now everything becomes inward. So everything becomes looking towards the self. The universe is now the self. And universally speaking, and I'm going to get philosophical with it, universally speaking, the universe is not necessarily everything outside of you and is not necessarily also everything within you. It is a bit of both. And it's not that you necessarily have to find a balance between your place in the universe, but you have to find a harmony. You have to find where you belong. So you have to find artistically, where do you belong? Creatively, what is your purpose? Creatively, what kind of story, what kind of character, what kind of thematic work are you trying to create? Are you trying to create works of substance? Are you trying to create escapist works? Are you trying to create political works? Are you trying to create propagandic works? What are you trying to do? Because there has to be a point. Postmodernism tends to reject a lot of the focus of that there has to be a point. It begins, if you keep going down that road of thinking, you begin to reject the very essence of what it even means to be. And I'm leaving the sentence at that. What it literally means to be. Imagine that. Imagine feeling like you've rejected so much of every train of thought you could possibly have. Every intuition, every feeling, every single thing you know, that you literally know nothing whatsoever. And not that you've embraced the fact and you're open towards the fact that there's so much you don't know and that that's okay, because that's actually wisdom. You're wise if you actually can admit, wow, there's not a whole lot that I do know. I'm open towards life, the universe, etc., my place within it, others around me, learning from them, learning from others, learning from the past so I can pave a way for the future. That's wisdom. Postmodernism rejects so much, and going down that way of thinking rejects so much. And you might find that this is something that you see yourself within, whether it's comics, whether it's creativity, whether it's the world around you, there is so much of a concentration about rejection of what came not only before, but also of who you are, that at the end of it, all you're left with for your objective reality is based on what you can see. It's based on the superficial, because that becomes difficult to argue against until eventually you find arguments for that. So postmodern way of thinking, it's such a nonchalant, harmless term. Postmodern. It almost sounds, innocuous. It's not really that dangerous. It's after modern. After modern sounds like it's the future. What a bleak future, though, to reject all that came before, all that's been established, all that people have worked with. Yes, Stark, we are getting a little existential here. And this is my concentration of where I'm coming from when I talk about this. Because for me, I think we're going to see when we look back, because you can't define these things when you're in it. And I wasn't, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not necessarily the person that coined this term. The term of the Iron Age of comics has been around for a while. I'm saying in this is conversationally when I've been talking to people about what it means to me, but what it means to me is not something that I've heard other people address it in this kind of a way up until kind of recently. So I write in this comment here, I said, circa 2020 and on, I think we'll look back and find we are in an Iron Age, forged by creators and readers that stood strong and exhibited determination and iron will. Similar to the Iron Age, we're finding new tools at our disposal and are able to become more prosperous, independent, and advanced because of it. So like the humanity's Iron Age, like what they experienced, where they were able to create these tools that enabled them to have advancements in their life. But like any other tool, they can be used to create and destroy. So you can think, wow, I created this hammer. This hammer is so useful. This hammer can build a house. This hammer can forge a community. This hammer can also tear it down. It can also destroy it. So like any other thing, to me, philosophically, I was thinking of this age of comics that we're finding ourselves starting to be in. We are not deeply in it. We're right at the beginning of it. And this is from a personal viewpoint. I'm not saying that you have to declare it as the Iron Age. I think that's kind of like giving yourself a nickname. If I'm going to say, no, you have to declare it the Iron Age because I have said it's the Iron Age and I have reasons for it. Your reasons could be completely different from mine. You could think it's completely something else, and you could say, I think Pete's full of it. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's fine. To me, this was a conversational thing. This wasn't a declarative statement when I was saying this on Clint's channel or when I've spoken about it before on other channels. But that hammer, just like your tool as an artist, whether it's your pen, your words, your tablet, whatever you're doing digital work on, the way you're selling your comic, because we've broken so many technological barriers that have now leveled the playing field. But by leveling the playing field and being able to get your stuff out there and having a platform to do so and everything else, everyone else has that same advantage too. So you may think you've gained an advantage, but you really kind of have the same advantage everybody else has, because now there's so much more competition. So you have to find a way to get through it. But by having so much more competition, iron, sharpens iron. So you can hopefully see that a lot of people will be getting better and better and better at what it is they're doing, becoming maybe more inspired. And at first, maybe they're getting egos hurt, but maybe they become more inspired to get better, to persevere, to carry on. Some won't. This isn't going to be something for everybody, just like anything else in life. Maybe they'll find that path isn't really for them, and they go on that path and they decide, no, it's not working out. I can't really find a way to get better. I'm hitting a wall with my progress. I'll just leave it at that. And then others will find that their progress is growing leaps and bounds and they're having great success, and this is the way. And they're listening to not just their heart, they're listening to the universe around them saying, no, this is what you're supposed to do with your life. But you can't figure out what path you're supposed to be on until you start taking that path. So it's good that people pursue it. You don't have to be great at it to want to pursue it. The fact that you want to pursue it at all, pursue it. Give it a try. Give it a shot. Give it your best. Work hard. Be prepared for work. But that's to me, what the Iron Age of comics is about. It's not necessarily the same thing as the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, etc. I don't think it's ever going to be declaratively really truly said. I don't think 50 years from now we're going to have bags and boards with comics that fit the Iron Age sizing of comics or whatever that may be. But for me, on a personal level, I think it's the Iron Age because of the fact of what we're going to be going through. It's almost like we're kind of in a bit of a dark age in creativity. We're seeing a lot of the same ground tread over and over again. And I don't just mean in comics, but all over the place. And then even philosophically, it's a bit that way too. And they always go hand in hand. They mirror each other. That's why when people say stuff like this isn't really that important, art mirrors, it always will and always has. Art mirrors the world around it. But great art shapes it. So it's not a mirror anymore. It's not just a reflection. It's actually setting a trail before you. It is going into uncharted territory. And every time there's this movement, it reflects the world. But that's how you get out of these movements. There's little peaks into something else. And people are trying something different. And people are tired of whatever it is that's going on. And then they start to do something different. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. But at the same time, with this Iron Age kind of thing, I'm looking at it from a standpoint completely of the independent, because it's also, to me, the biggest age of independent comics that there's been in a long time. In a long time. It's almost a renaissance. You can't even classify it as a golden age, a silver age, whatever, of indie comics or of independent creativity. Because independent creativity for a while there was almost, not completely, but almost dead in the water. And eventually creators and technology kind of merged to, creators figured out how to use those tools of technology to get their art out there. But I don't know. Because again, in 5 years from now, it could be all crap. I don't see it going that way. I see it going in a way of the fact that people are going to be pushing more and more for stuff that's less cynical, stuff that's less self-referential, less about constant self-gratification, and more about the world around them, the world outside of them, their place in it. And as a storyteller, then you reflect that way of thinking onto your characters. So instead of having your characters constantly be in this state of me, everything is me, right? Instead of having them be that way, it's more about true heroism, right? We'll see those ideals established again. And being a hero is a lot about selflessness as opposed to selfishness. Selfishness is generally a villainous trait. But selflessness, to be giving of oneself in a situation, that's more of a heroic tendency. And I think we're going to start to see that. Again, I think we're seeing a lot of stuff, not everything, again, a lot, but not everything, where it's been a tendency to see these characters have a very narcissistic viewpoint. And then we find that there's a lot of these creators that are making these stories and these works that are in themselves very narcissistic. So it should stand to reason that, of course, that's kind of the story that they're going to start telling. But again, like everything, people eventually get sick of it. And when you're in the middle of it, man, oh man, right? It feels forever. It feels like it's never going to end. I honestly think we're coming to the end of that. Probably got a couple more years. Creative voices are starting to break through from many different platforms and many different mediums. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more. I think 10 years or so, we're going to be deep in it. It's going to be completely immersed in this wonderful new era that is going to be unlike anything else ever before, because it is so focused not just upon rejection of the postmodern way of thinking and embracing again heroism, defined sense of good and evil, and it doesn't mean when you have defined sense of good and evil that you can't still have villains that aren't compelling or even maybe, dare I say, relatable. Like, you understand where they're coming from. But it means that you understand where they're coming from, but they're still bad. It's not one of those things of, yeah, I get it. But so I think we're going to start seeing that. And we're going to start seeing philosophically getting away from that sense of narcissism. Because narcissism, just like everything else that comes along with postmodernism, you can only look inward for so long. And eventually people that are outside of it, because there's always going to be people, I hate to get morbid with it, but there's always going to be people that, as long as we have lifespans that are finite, as long as people die, there will always be something new. So again, I hate to be morbid with it and say it in those kind of terms, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way the world is. So there's always things that kind of come and go, are born again, and make their way into the world, into the consciousness of the individual, and then to the consciousness of the mass itself. But as long as we start doing that, and we're seeing it, we're seeing the tendency to push away from that kind of way of thinking because it is not healthy. And we're embracing more and more of these things, and people are striving for it. And it's going to be based on the back of hopefully people not making the same mistakes that came before them. That's the key to all of this kind of stuff, to not have this embracing of these ideals, for lack of a better word, and don't put them again in the packaging of corporations and greed. And we see a lot of stuff where certain characters become successful, and then a company or a person thinks every character should be that character, because if every character was that character, we'd be just as successful across the board. That's not what makes him special, though. That's not what makes that character work. So it's a bit interesting to see people starting to get away from what we're currently seeing in the past 10 to 15 years or so. That's been bubbling up over time. It didn't happen overnight. And now we're getting into another age where people are saying, no, enough of this. This is the wrong kind of path to go down. We need to go down a path that we can have some kind of objectivity here. Because if you have no objectivity whatsoever, and to have an openness with your objectivity is kind of the true way to actually attain any kind of wisdom, any kind of true knowledge. Because if you're closed off, forget it. There is no knowledge. If you're closed off and you're indoctrinated and you're crystallized in your way of thinking and your way of being, there is no knowledge. But you're always in a constant state of gaining knowledge if you remain open, while accepting that there is objectivity. So you're always striving for a standard to be maintained. How do you know what that standard is? That's based so much on not just the individual, but based on where you are in a certain point within your life. But we're going to see that creatively. We're going to see this kind of thing happen. For some people, it's going to sound like a big, huge word salad. It probably will. And it probably is in some strange way. But there's a lot behind what I'm talking about other than just it's a cool name. It's because it sounds cool, right? It sounds cool to think of it as like, oh yeah, it's badass, it's iron, and it's strong, and picture, metaphorically speaking, your creators are forging, ahead and creating these cool things, and there's going to be this new age, but through that age, there's still going to be good and bad. Doesn't mean everything that comes out of an iron age of comics is of quality. It doesn't mean that everything is peaceful. It doesn't mean any of that. It just defines a certain way of thinking where at the end of it, the creativity at least has a chance to grow. The storytelling, the philosophy, the way that we think, the way that we see the world around us, the way that we see each other, it has more of a chance of growth and acceptance than the constant rejection of everything and anything in an effort to establish the past as being either bad, immoral, archaic, obsolete. You can look at something from the past and say, oh yeah, it's different today. We wouldn't say that, we wouldn't do that. That's normal. That's a normal way to be. But you have to learn from it. And the only way that you're going to learn from it is, at first, you have to understand and have a respect for it. You have to understand and have a respect for why it was that way, and what led it to be that way. So if you don't have an understanding and a respect for it, forget it. You're just looking at it and being hateful to be hateful of what came before, and wanting to place it all in this little nice black and white kind of safety zone thing of, well, it's easy to say what came before was bad, and now what will come from me and from others like me is good. That's not true. So it's that essence of really trying to seek out what is true, what is wisdom, what is knowledge, what is all these other things. That only comes from experience. And you're not going to have experience unless you open yourself up towards thinking and experiencing and living. So Jasper Plan 9 says, I'm not conservative, but there's something to be said about conservative voices being stifled by corporations that got us here. Well, it's an ultimate rejection of not necessarily, and thank you for the super chat. It's an ultimate rejection, not just something that has to do with the conservative politically. It's deeper than that. It's the rejection of anything that has to do with the past. The conservative on a superficial level, just it seems like, oh, you're stuck in the past, right? Conservative, brings to mind something archaic, something of yesterday, something of, it rejects, to reject conservatism, it makes it seem like it's rejecting modernism, rejecting the future, rejecting progress, right? And that's why they call progressive conservative. One sounds so much nicer, right? Moving forward, progressive. And the other one sounds conservative. Well, you're withdrawn, you're not being open. So immediately the term plays upon itself, and those in power will always want to play upon whatever term they can and kind of use it as much as they can against every little tiny drop of what that term can possibly mean or represent. So it's not even so much the rejection of political conservatism, but the concept itself of the past, and that there's nothing good from it, there's nothing you can learn from it, and there's nothing you should respect from it. That the future is the way. Well, how the hell do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been? You're just going to make the same mistakes all over again. And not just you personally, but societally. So if you're someone who, let's say, instead of learning from others and their experiences and the knowledge that they've accrued through their experience, the wisdom that they're passing on from generation to generation, so on and so forth, for thousands of years. We're not even talking about decades, thousands of years of humanity, of history. If you are talking about the rejection of that because you base it as something in some kind of morality, and you think that what lies ahead is good and what came before was bad, you're going to just make the same mistakes over and over again. So to put it simply, if you constantly, let's say something that's been done within comics just works. This is how you do it. because this is the right way to do it, right? Objectivity. Prepping files, something as simple as that. All right, it's a size, it's objective. All right, so the comic is an objective size, whatever that size may be, that's the size. Now, an objective truth to comics, there's trim that takes place on a page. If you want full bleed, you have to have an extension of the art past where it'll be trimmed, otherwise you will not have full bleed. If someone wants to reject and dismiss what came before entirely, the knowledge that has been passed down from people's experiences, and you want to go into it, how many mistakes you think this individual is going to make instead of learning and accepting that, hey, this is the objective truth here. And why am I arguing against it when this is the thing that I'm trying to do that many others have done before? Why would I try to find some different? You're going to find the same way. You're going to make your mistakes, and you're going to find you're on the same path of everybody else. Only instead of just learning from them and moving forward, you've decided, no, I'm going to be the one who knows what's right, and only what I experience is right. And that's forward thinking. Because looking to the past, looking to what others have done, is bad. So something as stupid as that, as establishing trim size, bleed, etc., preparing a file, and rejecting what came before you, rejecting the knowledge, rejecting the experience of others, and saying what you know is best, because what they know is bad. That's just going to cause you to make a bunch of mistakes that you didn't have to make. And now if we take that and extrapolate that societally, well, now you can see what's going to happen. Because why? People are rejecting the past. They're rejecting what came before. They're rejecting what someone else has been through. They're rejecting their experience and their wisdom and everything that they've already been through. And they're going to repeat the same stupid mistakes because they want to place some kind of morality upon the past and the future. The past and the future, there's no morality. Normal, different, there's no morality. It's just statistical averages. Past and the future are just words for places and pinpoints of time. And time in itself, if we want to get crazy, time in itself is the ultimate concept of mankind trying to actually truly reach beyond itself and control something it cannot control. To place, say that this is the time, this is how much this is. You can relate it to things, yes, but it's all related to itself. This is just a referential point. So time in is of itself is of what we say it is. Time is different somewhere else for someone else. Relatively speaking, time is different for all of us. So again, this is something where, I think about things too much. It helps me with my stories, though, believe it or not. But to me, it's interesting to see, and I appreciate that, Ross, for the blockage of that individual bot there. It's interesting for me to see when people are using a term like this with the Iron Age, and it's good that they're coming across it and it's a rallying cry and this and that. But the thing is that also, just to make a quick segue of it, I'm not the first to use it. Everybody else is not the first to use it. This has been around for quite some time, but not necessarily in the way that it's being used right now. So here, this Tropedia is saying the Iron Age of comic books is a different interpretation of comic history that sees the Dark Age of comic books and the Modern Age of comic books as one period. This age can be defined with retcons, reboots, retools, etc. That were deemed necessary after about 50 years of accumulated continuity, threatening to continuity lock out new readers. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, because it's the rejection of the past, but they're placing it much earlier. They're placing it around the time of like Crisis on Infinite Earths and the mid 80s to like early 90s or so. So they're placing this era much earlier. And then there's another article here that talks about it. So this is just me basically saying, as far as the Iron Age of comics, and is this the Iron Age of comics? I would say yes and no. Now this one here says that the years are between 68 and 78 for the Iron Age of comics, and they're looking at it as between the Silver Age and the Bronze Age. So I think that they're being a little more literal with the interpretation of metals defining ages and things like that. I've never heard anyone definitely say that the Iron Age of comics is some kind of age of comics. I've heard bronze / copper, that kind of thing, but I've never heard, bronze, silver, iron, copper, bronze, whatever. I mean, golden, etc. I've never heard anything like that. So the term has been around for a while. But for me, it's a bit deeper than that. It's more of something where it's a philosophical thing. It's a philosophical thing. Now, that's the way I feel about it. If there were any kind of questions in the chat, anything like that, please feel free to address them. I'm going to put the link here in the chat. If you want to join, if you want to come on the show and talk to me about this Iron Age stuff or any of your other thoughts on anything I've said tonight, please feel free to join. I've got the StreamYard link right there in the chat right now. So for me, I would almost categorize ages of comics a bit differently, because we're starting to have a diverging path, and it's always kind of been a path that's been parallel, but now it's diverging. And what I'm talking about is mainstream comics, which is, in America at least, has largely been superhero, and then indie comics, which has largely been everything else. So we've kind of always been on this parallel path with Golden Age, Silver Age, etc. But I think we're starting to see things really split off. And I think that's because, and it started to split, I think, when the mainstream comic companies were no longer necessarily making comics, and that was their number one objective. When they became multimedia entertainment companies, owned by much larger companies, and the nail in the coffin on that one, of course, is Disney with Marvel. So Warner Brothers kind of was almost, I mean, they weren't a silent partner, that's for sure, but they were kind of almost like a silent partner with DC for quite some time. And then it's been a tailspin of who owns DC. I mean, it's been musical chairs with them, unfortunately, for the past, 10 years maybe? But Marvel, to me, that's when that split. It went this parallel road of like indie and mainstream kind of traveling along the same way, and almost like indie becoming a farm system in a way for the mainstream. A lot of indie creators eventually working in the mainstream, and the mainstream was seen as the pinnacle, the big leagues, But now indies are starting to kind of have their own version of the big leagues, of the majors, and what that means. And in the storytelling way, it's definitely, since I think 2009 is when Disney acquired Marvel, it's been splitting big time since that point. And we're going to find that they're just going on their own separate paths. It's not even like the mainstream's going straight and indie is diverging. They're both going complete opposite directions at this point on every issue that there is. Storytelling, ownership, the way that the books are getting out to the customers, the kind of characters and everything else that's being created, all kinds of stuff going on. So we're going to see a lot of that, and I think a lot of the Iron Age type stuff that I'm talking about is going to kind of be really revolving around that. Really revolving around that sense of this is when the indie comics movement, whatever that may be. It started with underground comics. That was the golden age of indie. And then into the Silver Age, you're talking about maybe the 80s or so, where a lot of that, because again, the movement is not as old as the superhero movement of comics. It kind of died out for a little bit. They squashed it. There was a lot of romance, Western, horror, and then they squashed that. And then superhero really took over. And indie had to almost have a reboot of the entire concept of what it meant to be independent. And then that divulged into something else because it was just parallel. It was just comic industry. And those comic industry type of genres and things like that are being created. They were kind of being created one and the same by many of the same kind of companies. So at this point, now we're seeing independent truly being independent to the point that now, and even though I'm a publisher, I've never heard another indie publisher say it. But I will tell someone, you don't need a publisher to get your book out. It's so true. Nowadays, you don't even need distribution to be a success. You don't, if anything, distribution nowadays will actually hinder your success. I've experienced that personally. We've seen tons of people that aren't through the usual traditional system have tremendous success because they're able to pave their own way now, because technology has opened up so many avenues that they're able to take advantage of that and actually pave their own path. But before, if you didn't go a certain way, a certain route, and that was it, you were done. You were selling the comics maybe out of your trunk and hoping to God that you got lucky at some point in time, you know, and how many of you are going to be an Eastman and Laird situation. So even that, you know, if you don't have the traditional kind of stuff set up, it's going to be a very bumpy road. But now you don't really need that. You can go into it and you could just pave your own path. It's amazing. I'm putting the link here pinned to the top of the chat. Again, if you guys do want to join in and talk about this, let me know. And also, Bronze Age Kid, thank you so much. Says, hey Pete, just a little thank you for the great customer service with my issue this week. And yes, silver, bronze, iron, etc. are more philosophical to me too, more about approach to the art form. I agree. Yeah, I've always seen them that way. They're kind of been defined now as like sizing. I think a lot of people just automatically think of the sizing, but there's always been a storytelling approach to Golden Age as opposed to silver, bronze, etc. And we think of it in terms of the storytelling, but we don't think of it in terms of societally and artistically, the philosophy behind why those storytelling changes had occurred. And I think we're seeing the same thing now. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of I think that this is what people should call it, or this is what it should be. I'll leave that up to the history books, more or less. This was kind of conversationally stuff that I had brought up, and now I'm starting to see it kind of get around, which is kind of cool. And I'm not claiming credit for it whatsoever. I believe that Razor Fist, who has a much larger platform than me, him shining a light on that terminology obviously is gonna be a much larger thing. But again, this is what I'm talking about, right? It's the zeitgeist. It's the paradigm shift that's occurring. So, and I'm not even saying that Razor Fist or whoever else read my comment and thought like, oh, I gotta use that. I gotta say that. Again, I wasn't even aware until 2 days ago when I looked it up that this has been a term that's kind of been talked about already for quite some time. But I feel like there is a shift. There is a shift. And I think if anything, that kind of proves the consciousness that I'm talking about that is shifting. Because for someone like him to have that same thought in that same way, I had said what I had said around summer of last year, and then had written it on that comment on Sweet Cat's video in August of 2021. And then I believe Razor Fist had said it sometime almost a year later. I think he had said it like early August or maybe late July or something like that, which means he was probably thinking about it as well. And I'm sure others have thought about it. I'm sure others have said it. I'm sure that there's been rumblings. There's been, for all of us that are on the same relative wavelength, you know, we use these words like vibes. We use these words like wavelength. We use these words that seem so descriptive, but don't necessarily mean more than that. What if they really do? And that's why we use them. You know, so I think of things like that, and I think that that's the kind of thing that's happening. I think that he felt it that way and felt, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say what I feel about it because I think this is what's happening. I think this is a good way to define it. And it's interesting to me. It's interesting. I'm not trying to say like, oh yeah, you should, don't give credit to Razor Fist, give credit to me. I'm not trying to say that. I don't want necessarily credit for it. I'm trying to be a part of the conversation in terms of adding to it as to why I had said it and felt it. And that also why I think it's interesting as to why he probably said it and felt it, and why many others have said it as well, and probably are actually saying this is a good try. I think this makes sense. You know, they're probably going, oh, that sounds right to me. You know, again, it's a shift that's occurring. And just the fact that is even occurring, that is entering the conversation. And hopefully this video helps further the conversation. Just the fact that that's happening is so good. It's a good thing that that's happening, because it needs to happen, because that will help push it. That will help push this new age, whatever the hell anyone wants to call it, whatever anyone wants to define it. I'm sure once we're all dust, they'll define it as something else or whatever. But it needs to happen. Call it whatever you want. I really don't even, I don't care. It's not about what to call it. It's about the fact that it's even happening. The philosophy needs to switch. And it needs to not just switch creatively. It needs to switch on so much. So much. And it's gonna. That's the thing. That's the beautiful part about it. You don't have to force this stuff. And that's the thing. If you force it, the more you force stuff like this, the more you force a philosophy, the more you tell people this is what you should think, this is what you should do, the more that they're not going to do that. So, again, with this sort of thing, be embracing of it. And that's all I've seen so far. Be embracing of it, and not just of yourself, but of someone else who wants to embrace it as well. And just continue on the path, because you're treading new ground. And when you're treading new ground, it's always going to be scary. There's always a risk. But that's the thing, is that we've seen so many people that are kind of treading ground of what came before them. And this is something with postmodernist type stuff, where they're going down the path of the greats that paved that way. And they rejected the previous trail, so that trail, that's not leading us anywhere good. We got to make a new trail. So then these people come along, they make a new trail, they pave the way, blood, sweat, and tears. Everything you could think of imaginable in terms of the anguish and the what someone would go through in uncharted territory. And then, generationally speaking, new people come along. They walk along that same path. And they not only salt the earth that they're walking, but every tree, push it right down in the path. They burn the ground, and they just keep moving along as they're walking. Almost like they're setting like a gasoline fire, right? It's a complete and utter disrespect to the people that put so much time, effort, experience, blood, sweat, and tears, every single thing, every cliche you could think of. It's a complete thing. And that's what angers so many people. It's not about the anger of, and again, this is something that it's dwindling it down into such a petty issue, and it's not petty at all. It's so deep. It's not about the rejection of someone else. It's not about saying that, women or minorities or whatever or this are not welcome, and obviously that's why they're rejecting certain things. That is, again, a superficial evaluation being placed upon by people who can no longer view the world as anything but superficial. Because if you truly look at it as it's about diversity, every single person is unique unto themselves, no matter what you look like superficially. Let's get disgusting and, hellraiser it and strip the skin off, right? Now I don't know what the hell you are. You don't know what the hell I am. I'm just flesh. I'm just muscle and blood and big ol' eyeballs. There's a visual for Halloween. You don't know what the hell I am. You don't know who the hell I am. That's what it is. That's what we all are. So superficially, we're looking at it as saying that that's what makes us different, the superficial. That's not what makes us different. What makes us different is who we are and what we've been through. That's what makes us different, because that's what actually shapes your thought, shapes you as an individual, as a unique being. So you automatically have diversity, no matter what it is, if you view people as individuals. If you view them as a collective, the only source for diversity that you have is the superficial. Hey, what's up, Jasper?
Peter, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. What a great chat you've had, man. I have not heard your channel in so long, and it doesn't mean that you haven't been doing it. It just means that it's been a while since I've tuned in. But today, man, you're really on a roll.
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
man. Well, yeah, it's been something that's on my mind, and I rarely have a lot of time to to discuss this kind of stuff. So I felt like, I see a lot of people talking about it, and I want to give my viewpoint. A lot of people have sent me DMs and things asking about the whole Iron Age thing too, because they saw kind of what I had said back in August as well, and so I thought, might as well make a video talking about
It
it, how
sounds
I
like a
feel about it.
gimmick, man. It sounds like a gimmick, but if a gimmick is what resonates, then I guess I'll take it.
Yeah,
I
that's the
just
thing with me too. I feel like if it's forced upon people, if like you must now say this is the Iron Age of comic or whatever it is, or you should think that it's this, I feel like that's going about it wrong. That's why my whole thing about it wasn't necessarily declarative. It's more about the conversation. It's more about where I'm coming from philosophically with it, as opposed to saying that this is now what this should be, because I said so. That kind of stuff doesn't really resonate with me when someone else does it, and I sure as hell don't want to have someone else do it to me either. So I don't want to be the person that does it to someone too. So when it comes to the Iron Age and this and that or whatever, it's kind of just like shorthand for me in terms of just describing the mentality needed, that mental toughness to get through it and to get whatever is going on, postmodern or not, to reject the rejection of all things objective, of all things, of any kind of standard, of any kind of understanding, and to embrace the unknown and be open more about it. Because you get to have, that's the funny part with postmodernism. They reject so much that they become so crystallized that they must reject everything, and they become their own thing that they must reject. So you come full circle again all of a sudden with that way of thinking. And that's what to me is so funny about something like a postmodern movement.
I feel like that with Comicsgate because, and I'm going to tell you why. It's a label, okay, and you can what that label means to you can mean several things, or many things, or myriad of things. But the thing is to me, it's almost like co-signing, saying I am Comicsgate, or saying like, oh, it's a shame that he's not Comicsgate. It's like you're co-signing every bad behavior or every great behavior that anyone in that group that declares Comicsgate is. And that bothers me a lot because I buy all those books and I support many of those creators, but then you see somebody's bad behavior and you're like, oh shit. So that's me.
Yeah, well, that's the unfortunate thing too, and in a day and age where so much of it is the word that we say, whatever it may be, whether it's social media typing it out, whether it's YouTube speaking it, you rarely get to see the action involved, and that's where you really get to have a better sense of who someone is and where they're coming from is through the action. And you don't get to really do that immediately. It's almost the same thing as looking at a comic. You can judge the art immediately because that's what you see. But to read it, then you'll know whether or not you truly like it and want to stick with it. So the action, and obviously it's a cliche, actions speak louder than words, but it's a cliche for a reason, and it's true. And so if you go in there and just declare that you're this, declare that you're that, the words ring empty. And the more that people do that and say, well, my key to the kingdom, I just have to declare it. I don't have to live it. I don't have to do it. And eventually you can see it. This kind of thing has been going on for like roughly 5 to 6 years in terms of the entirety of it. You can see who's living it and who is kind of just saying it. Money talks, bullshit walks. Well, it's the same thing. People talk the talk. Do people walk the walk? So I see a lot of the talking of the talk, but it's very rare when you see people walking the walk.
Yeah. And then again, like I sent you a super chat because I mean this. Like I seriously do. The stifling of creative, conservative voices in a space that should be welcome to everybody is driving me insane right now because, there are guys like Chuck Dixon, Titans, Chuck Dixon and Mike Barron, writers, you hear them talk and they sound like a real writer. They don't sound like a guy who drew a book and is credited as the writer of the book with the pictures in it. Those guys sound like they have honed their craft so long, and they have the accolades to earn it. They just happen to not think the right way. What is that?
I mean, that's the thing. When you start, and we see it all the time, I think, with everything, right? We see it all the time with anything that turns into the label becomes more important. I mean, hell, we could even just say, we can get real just simple with it and just talk about brand labels. You know, the people that become so obsessed with the label of a brand, and they must own, like, let's say clothing, that they must own a certain thing no matter what, that all of a sudden they're paying like $150 for a white t-shirt because it's that brand. You know, so you go down the rabbit hole so badly that you almost have completely lost every sense of yourself because you're indoctrinated into, it's the brand. I gotta support the brand, but the brand is not only bad, it's not giving you the quality that you deserve, especially for what you're paying for it. So I'm not trying to say that this equates obviously to Comicsgate necessarily, or anything else really that's using a brand or a label or this, but there's a tendency for that kind of way of thinking to occur, that you automatically think, I mean, even Alterna, you know, there could be books at Alterna where you go, oh, I love this brand, I love this company, but it doesn't necessarily mean, and I encourage people all the time, if there's a book that you don't like, don't just keep buying it to buy it. Buy what you like, buy what you enjoy, read what you like and enjoy. It doesn't mean that if you're reading one book at Alterna, we publish like 20 or 25 or whatever it is, and you want to say that, oh, I like that publisher, I'm a fan of them, and all you do is you're reading one series, you're allowed to say that. You don't need to read the entire line. You don't need to buy every single thing that we do. So again, don't be like a slave to the brand. But at time, there's some weird kinds of thinking that can occur once you have this brand loyalty kind of concept that occurs. And then once you have that, you can have that kind of thinking among people that then all of a sudden come in and take advantage of those individuals.
Okay, yeah, I hear you. But then here's the thing, see, I don't know if I listened to everything you said, but I didn't know if you had a thesis, or if you just started talking on, what the Iron Age is. And I guess to what I'm leading to now.
Oh yeah, I'm just having a conversation.
It's great, and no, it's captivating.
I'm not trying to. That's the thing, is I'm not trying to be declarative about it.
No,
I'm sincerely asking the question to you guys as much as I am saying how I feel about it. Yeah, so you could come on and be like, well, I don't really think any of this is an Iron Age thing at all. I don't think any of this is that. And that's fine, because when I had said any of it, I didn't come on declaring it. I didn't say that other people should view it this way too. It was kind of funny to me that it's been all of a sudden now I see a lot of other people saying it. Someone like Razorfist with a larger platform, someone like him saying it and talking about it. I find that kind of stuff funny, only for the kind of weird mass consciousness effect and that paradigm shift that occurs where I didn't talk to him at all about this. And I'm sure that he didn't read my comment or see any of the videos where I had said it. It's just all of a sudden something clicks and you feel a certain way and you start saying certain things about something. And I find that that's the more interesting part when it comes to that. But as far as how I'm feeling philosophically about it, that's why I feel like, oh, Iron Age would be a good thing. Personally, for me, how I would view it, I would never expect someone else to prescribe to the same notion.
Well, it's exciting, isn't it? To say something like, I'm supporting the Iron Age. I'm supporting Comicsgate. These are new things. You know what I mean? It's exciting. And but then that takes me to the place of, now what?
Oh, well, yeah, that's why I mentioned before.
The expansion,
it doesn't necessarily mean that because it's that it's good.
Yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts because, I love comics. I'm getting older, so I can't. It's been a long time. Honestly, it's been quite a long time since I've bought comics, as periodicals. It's I buy omnibus, I buy deluxe hardcovers, because I like how they look on my shelf, for as long as they take up space that I think I don't need them to take up space. And then, but I support lots of crowdfund. But I guess, like I said, like I want the quote unquote, a parallel economy is discussed a lot. And the way I feel is I wish more creators that maybe feel like they might fall under the umbrella of Iron Age would strive to, if Iron Age is equivalent to a parallel economy, and say the direct market is making books that come out, I'm just going to say when, sure, every month, fine. It doesn't matter the quality. But, I just think some of these creators that I've been following for, I'll just say 2 years now, maybe they should strive to up their output. And that would truly create a parallel economy.
Yeah, I think that's what... I mean, ideally, I think that's what a lot of people would like to see. I mean, when you like something, you want to see more of it, right? And
well, it's not just that. I mean, think about it. Not just that. Well, sure, okay, you like something, but more like as a consumer, you read something, and you want to find out what happens next. You don't want to wait, like, geez, what, 9, like 12, like 18 months? Is that when the next part happens?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough. I can't necessarily comment on that kind of a thing, only because of the fact that when I'm thinking about it, there's so much in my day-to-day that I have stuff from like 6 or 7 months ago that I still haven't had a chance to read. So it's one of those things where it's difficult for me to give you other than saying that, yeah, I agree. No. I would love to see stuff out every week.
I was gonna say, not true, dude. You are the one who can comment on it.
How
I think
can
you're
I
the most qualified person who can comment on this.
Well, from a reader point of view, I can't really comment on it as well as you or someone else who's not creating can. Unless if you are creating a comic, then forgive me for my ignorance on it.
No, I'm not. I'm a consumer.
Yeah, so
I try.
I understand. Okay, so I'll put myself back into a time period of before I started creating, and definitely before I started publishing, because what a time suck that is. It's the reason I hadn't had a chance to create a lot for like 12 years. So even though I'm still publishing now, a lot of stuff had to change at Alterna and within the system we were using to have me be able to finally get out a series and start doing something on my own and feel like, okay, I've got time I can carve out for it. But to get back to when I was just a reader and just doing the enjoying the comics kind of thing, I would have been really upset if it was like a year or so between issues on my favorite series. But at the same time, seeing how things are in terms of the way a lot of creators can get their books out, what they have to do, because it's not just they're a part of the process at a company and they're doing a certain thing and then the larger company kind of takes over.
Can I interrupt really quick about something really dumb?
Sure.
The sprinklers outside my house just came on. Can you hear them? I'll go inside.
Very lightly.
Okay.
I really can't hear it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
It just kind of sounds like low interference. Yeah, nothing. It's nothing bad at all. People say that even the road noise is not that bad.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, no, I get a better connection outside the house, but that's not important right now.
Yeah, to me, it's more like I view it at this point in time, especially because so much of it is so new to so many. It's about...
That's exciting to me.
Yeah, no, it's exciting.
News exciting,
but when people are getting something out, let's say that it's like a year between. All right. I think there's going to be growing pains with it. So if a creator is aware of their shortcomings or what their production is like, and they say, look, it's going to take me 2 years, and you get it in 2 years or less, to me, that's a success. They did what they were supposed to do, and especially if it's great, then even better. But if it's one of those things, you're going to get it in 3 months, and it takes 2 years, that's a problem. And especially then if it took 2 years and it's utter garbage, that's a big problem. But then what happens with that is that the person doesn't really just get the same amount of support that they would have received before. So it's a natural hierarchy that starts taking place of who's succeeding and who's not succeeding, because the support comes through for certain people and not for others. I think where people have to start discerning, and again, I don't want to tell people what to think. They can think whatever they want, but to me, I would ask that people please understand every single person is different with this. So everyone might be using crowdfunding or whatever it might be, but each creator, each company, whatever it may be, is so different from everybody else that don't necessarily say that, well, because this person, you had a bad experience with them, that means you'd have a bad experience with the other person as well. And that's, I think, where the forgiveness part comes, because I know most people don't just have one bad experience and then that's it. They might have several. So that's why even with me, I made a video like a couple weeks ago saying I'm not backing any more books that they don't have the preview pages with writing as well. I want to see a completed even just one page, so I can get a sense of what the writing is going to be. Because it's as integral to me as the art. The art could look great, that's great. But if I don't even see what the lettering, what the writing is going to look like, how that page is just even flowing, I'm not backing it anymore, because I've had too many disappointing experiences where I said, oh, the art looks good. I trust that they can tell a coherent and interesting story. And I've had too many experiences where I get the book and it's really not that great at all. And I don't expect things to be, at the top of my list of all-time greats, but I expect a coherent story. I expect something that is relatively interesting. So that, for me, was a learning experience. But that's something that I'm adjusting on my own.
Okay. With that being said, I want to ask you, just like, it might be a little side topic. I'm sorry. Do you consider yourself more attracted to writing or art?
Oh, that's tough, man. I guess as a creator, when it comes to storytelling, I'm more attracted
Marvel
to
guy.
writing.
I'm not. Yeah. I'm a DC guy. But go ahead.
But yeah, and then when it comes to, I don't know, when it comes to now, do you mean as a fan? When it comes to being like a fan of a book, of what catches my eye, it's the art. It's always the art.
When you finish a book.
But when I'm creating,
when you finish
it's the
a
writing.
book, when you finish a book, were you like, that story was great, or were you like, that looked great?
Yeah, the story sticks with me.
Yeah,
it's like 51-49. But it's a story. I
think you're lying. I think it's more. I think story is more.
It's not. No, it's not. No, that's the thing.
Yeah. I know people. That's my cat, dude. I know people that like, I'll say, like, let for instance, okay, we're getting off topic. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Yeah. No, I said this was about 2 years ago. I bought the Kirby Fourth Age omnibus, and I shared it on Facebook. I'm like, this is Jack. Dude, I'm not that well versed in comics. I know what I grew up reading, but I didn't buy Jack Kirby when I was growing up. So I'm not that well versed in Kirby, but I bought this Fourth Age omnibus and it looks rad, And a couple of people, like one of my friends was like, oh, I have all those single issues. They look awesome, And that's a different way to experience reading, But then I have like a list of favorite writers, and no matter who that writer is paired with, that's who I'll still buy their stuff.
You mean even if? All. Wait, so you mean that then the writing is more important to you?
To me, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like I was like, like sometimes, for me at least, it comes down to like, this stuff with the crowdfunding, it looks great, some of them do anyways, and but then you read
I would honestly say, and this is me being brutally honest, and I'm even putting Alterna in there too, as far as like the art itself justifies the purchase and the story could be utter garbage, I think there's probably less than like 3 books, and I can't even name them. That's just like a guess of what I'm feeling based on what I've seen. So it's one of those things. There's not a lot of art among anything in crowdfunding or just comics in general, that I feel anyway, where you don't even care if that story is such a mess and makes no sense or whatever, but you're there because of the art. Is just you just look at the art and just enjoy it.
You know who, for me at least, goes over that or breaks that rule is Clint Stoker. I don't I buy his books based on his writing, and not whatever art is presented. I can overlook that. Because I think he's done such a great job and has such a great track record. So,
But that's what I mean though. Is
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
okay.
the writing needs to carry that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Yeah.
there's on an average, I think that there are writers within indie, especially in crowdfunding, that they could have less than stellar art and still tell a pretty great story, depending on the characterization and the storytelling. But there's very few with the art that the art is so great that the story could be utter crap, and you're still like, yeah, this is wonderful. So I think a lot of the time, though, that we do see art that immediately it catches you visually. That's one of the first. I mean, you can't evaluate the writing and the story until you read it. So the
Yeah.
art gets you immediately. So that's going to be this visceral kind of gut. It speaks to you or it doesn't.
And
And
that's a leap of faith with a crowdfund.
well, that's
You.
why I want to remove from me that leap of faith, because I've been getting too burned by the writing side of it, where I'm not seeing any writing on a crowdfunder. I'm not going to back it. And doesn't mean just because they put writing either, though, that means I'm going to back it.
That's
But I want to
fair.
start. I want to start seeing people put as much importance behind that as they would. Because think about, you wouldn't just put like, or not you, but a creator shouldn't just put lettering and a blank page with no art and expect someone to back the project. Well, it's just as important as putting that art with the writing on there. So for me, it's one of those things where from now on, I backed too many. I backed probably like 20 projects or so, and I'd say probably like 8 of them I was happy about. But the last like 5 or 6 that I had backed, 2 of them flat out, I was like, I don't think this is the same story I thought I was backing. And then I go back to the crowdfunder and I read it, and I'm like, yeah, this is definitely not the story being pitched. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, nope, I got to see some writing. I got to see writing now. So personally, for me, that's just a thing. And I put that on my own campaigns too. Now, does that mean that, again, if I see the writing on there, does that mean that, yeah, I'm instantly backing it because they put writing on there? No. But it gives me more information to make a better decision. And that's what I think every creator, every company should be trying to strive for, is to give their audience a chance, or potential audience a chance, to make an informed decision on their purchase.
You're adding value, and that's the thing. Like, is what I'm talking about is like with this Iron Age or parallel economy, is it you gotta like add value or be more competitive. With what you have, you have to be more aware. I have like oh man, I spent years like just marketing, like in marketing, and I really do love it. I think it's a creative. That's one of the most fun things about business. That
Yeah.
when the one you could be like creative in marketing and like not, it's just all, you could do something very creative and it's like under the category of marketing, not like accounting or something like that. And so that's something you could do. Like if you set a goal, and again, like when I say goal too, I also mean like the deadlines, but you could set a goal, and the goal can be, I want to put writing on my campaign for 5 pages. You know what I mean? And so that moves you a little bit closer to this maybe imaginary goal, or maybe this goal of, this is the Iron Age and I want to be part of it, or I want to be part of the parallel economy that's going to, compete with the direct market, like it's
Yeah.
important to me. It's important to me.
Well, it's the same thing.
know?
I've said this before. It has to do a lot with the submissions I receive as well. I see a lot of people who are rushing to make a comic, but not rushing to learn how to make a comic. So I see a lot of that. I see a lot of enthusiasm for, I'm just going to make this and get it to a publisher.
I appreciate that too.
And
I'm glad
I
a
like
couple
that
people,
energy.
yeah.
But at the same time, that's not going to benefit the publisher themselves or the potential buyer if someone's out there making something for the first time, they're all energy and, you know, piss and vinegar about it, but at the same time they're putting out something that looks like a 12-year-old made it.
Yeah, you
You
know,
know, so
I'm really
take the
glad
time,
that a
learn,
guy
put
like
that
Rob
energy in the
Arnold
right
can
direction.
strike out at plate.
So Replicator,
I
yes.
see him on the screen. I see Rob.
Rob,
on the
yes,
screen.
I can tell.
I had to say it. He can
Rob, I
call
can
in.
tell from one panel of writing if I want to read more of it or not. When I've read over, and Rob, when you read over 15,000 submissions in 16 years, you'll be able to tell from one page of writing whether you'd like to read more of it or not, too.
Oh, Rob. Tell Rob to call in, man. What's going on?
Yeah, call in, Rob.
Where are you?
I got about 15 more minutes or so for the
No,
show
you
today.
don't. No, you don't.
Yes,
This is
I
YouTube,
do.
Pete.
10:30. That's it.
You gotta talk to me all night,
leave.
Pete.
I gotta get books out.
I'm a customer. You gotta talk to me all night. You hate the customers?
Well, like they say, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. But the good part is you are home.
No,
right?
man,
You're home, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Where are we now? Where are we at in this conversation? Did we get somewhere?
A little bit. I think we did.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, but you know what I want to see? I want to see a lot of, and this is kind of where people need to get to, is for some reason somewhere along the line people thought $25 is a standard for a comic at crowdfunding.
Ooh, ouch. Okay, I got thoughts.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And to me, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. This is a commiserate price based on experience, based on the value being put into the book. So if you're someone who you've put in 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever amount of years into the industry, or 1 year or 1 day or whatever it's been, your price should be commiserate with the experience that you're putting into that product. So if you're bringing that amount of experience into it, then yeah, maybe you can charge 25 for some, 60 to 80 pager. But if you're coming in there, this is the first comic you've ever made, you've been doing this for maybe a year or so, and you're like, yeah, $25, I should be charging the same as what everyone else. That's, to me, I don't like seeing that. I don't like seeing that at all. You want to build your readership, you want to make sure that you're not necessarily hurting yourself. But let's face it, you could be even charging that for like $10 to $5. Get more readers on board, get a chance to get more of a base built up, get your product out there. The more books that you print, the cheaper it gets. So you should look at that as an economy of scale issue as well. And then also you're going to get a bunch of readers that are going to go, oh, wow, it was a first timer, but their book is $5. I'll give that a shot. And then you can get feedback from those readers too. But if you go into it $25 and then you're looking at your 50 backer campaign and you're barely hitting your goal, and you don't know why you're kind of hitting this plateau at a very low amount unless someone larger gives you a platform, that's not going to be the answer to how you need to have an upward mobility and success as a creator or as an entrepreneur. So price things accordingly. Look at it from the standard of I'm not just someone who's selling, but look at it from would I buy this? Would I buy this at this price? And be honest with yourself. And I see a lot of people not being honest with themselves.
You are 100% speaking my language right now, and I'm going to tell you why. It ain't just about what's on the page. It's about the format. It's about the quality of paper. It's about, the right print format. It's about... it's about whether maybe it comes with a signature, maybe it comes with a remark, maybe it comes... I'm not even going to talk about add-ons, but no, it's not about a saddle-stitched book for $25. It's got to be, it's got to be more than just that. There are a couple examples, and I'll just say Graham Nolan or Billy Tucci should be the gold standard for a $25 book. If anyone has received something from them, they get a thank you letter.
Think about everything they're putting into it, not just in what you receive, but also in what it took for them to get to that point in their life to bring you that book at that quality.
Again, 30 years, dudes that were in there for 30 years. So, or just whatever, that part's important to me, but you can see it though. So, don't just throw something together and take it to like a digital printer. Yeah, I think people I've been in the print industry for a long time. That's not what I do now, but people think digital printing is just the shit. And yes, there's been a lot of technological advancements, but it's still, you can see it, you know. And if you are a person who is like, number one, there's two different people. There's a person who wants to put out a book, and then there's a person who wants to have their book appreciated 10 years from now on a shelf. So pick one, you know. Do you want the digital print that someone's going to receive and like maybe say something and be happy about? Or do you want the book that is going to sit on a shelf and someone's going to pick up and reread? Pick one, you know. And that's where your price point comes in.
Yeah, the other thing too that I see too many people talk about is the form factor as opposed to the team involved. And I see people that will think nothing. They'll think nothing of the extra couple $1,000s or whatever it is after everything is said and done to make sure they get something that's like this hardcover, you know, great paper and all this other stuff, and they talk it up, but the story's crap, the art's crap. And instead of putting those thousands and making just, we'll say the Alterna way of a newsprint book with the glossy cover, and having that money, that thousands, instead of putting it towards the hardcover, the crazy premium paper, whatever, put it towards hiring someone that is of experience and brings value to your story and to your book. That's money better spent to me, in terms of if I'm a creator and I'm going to say, okay, this is what we could do. You know, you look at it like a general manager. You go, we can afford this player, or we can make improvements to the concession stand. You know, what'll bring in more people? Getting an A-list player, getting an all-star in here, or making sure that the concession stand is top-notch. Meanwhile, our team sucks, and we have no chance in hell of winning a championship this season. Who do you think? Which team is going to end up? And if anything, you get that all-star on the team, you put butts in seats, and now all of a sudden.
Now, Pete?
Well, we're talking about all sports. Now all of a sudden you've got that all-star on the team. You're putting butts in seats, and guess what? Now you've got the money to improve the concession stand all of a sudden on the next go-around for the next season. But when people think about the outside crap first and not taking care of the personnel issues and what's actually going to bring people there, as opposed to the bells and whistles and the bullshit, then all of a sudden the overall product suffers, and that's when things go south. So I'd love to see people instead go, bring in a great, you know, I see artists and writers all the time, and they're on Twitter, they're everywhere. But I see people all the time going, I don't know, I can't, you know, draw the book, so I'm just going to try to do it. And you can see what they're doing, and God bless them, but they're doing it, and you can tell that this is someone who's never really drawn before. And they're trying, they're doing their best. But instead of saying, you know what, if I can crowdfund, if I can get this script going, it's a good story, and if I can get it in the hands of a good artist, you know, pay that $100 to $200 a page, and get a good solid artist and incorporate that into your crowdfund, pay them in advance for like 5 pages, and then present something to that crowdfunded base and say, look at what we're doing. And now all of a sudden,
what a great example is Joe Sontag's Reaper Destroyer. He grew up on Top Cow. He's got Top Cow guys working on his book, you know? And
get the quality in there, yeah.
It crossed 50K, you know? What you just said is the example of that, you know? So that there's real results to that, you know? So
yeah.
There you go. That's what I have to add to that.
100%, you know, and that's the thing is that, so I look at everything and go, okay, well, there's all these different things that people are doing. I get it. And some people think, well, you know, I don't think I can either afford or that an artist will work with me of any kind of caliber on that level. Well, you're not going to know until you ask. And you're not going to be able to figure any of this stuff out until you actually are aware of every avenue that you've tried. And now this is the only solution. You have to do it, period. There's no other way. All right, well, if that's the only way and it's going to be like this and it's going to look like that and this is the kind of book that people are going to get, then price it accordingly. and have those expectations curbed. I see so many people that it's like they price it that way, and like I said before. So it's still one of those things to me. Get that talent in there. Because how many times do we even see in the mainstream they've been like the talent pool is run dry. Bullshit. You guys, you know what's run dry is your common sense. You guys become so cheap. You don't want to pay anyone of any talent anymore, and you just take advantage of people, pay them next to nothing, and you just crank out a megaton of crap to flood the shelf, so that anything of quality gets drowned out, or even better yet, maybe not even put on the shelf at all, because the retailer is so overwhelmed, because their budget and their space in the store are finite. So the whole thing with the mainstream industry, these companies that have gotten too big, and that's what it is. That's where we see this divergent path now, and where it's become so great. But the indies don't make the same mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes. Don't cut corners. Do it the right way. Learn, get better and better and better. Price things accordingly. Always think about growing your readership first and foremost, as opposed to making, even honestly on your first project, even before thinking about making a profit. I had to work
I wish
2
more
to
thought
3
like that,
jobs
you know,
for
man.
6 to 7 years when I started in comics. So it's one
Yeah.
of those, there's no shame to it. But you're doing what you got to do to work towards your dream. But you got to do what it takes.
I wish more thought like that, because I see a lot of people who, are kind of reviewing campaigns or reviewing others' campaigns that are reviewing the dollar amount, not like the backer amount, and then the backer amount is, that's where that like, the retail price comes in, like the $25 versus what could be, part comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and that could be a barrier to entry to a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, believe it or not, like, Alterna has the most affordable comics on the planet, basically.
I know,
and yet,
dude,
meanwhile,
I wish I would, dude, give me a better format. Pete, please give me a better format.
We did that. We did
It's
that
your
for
thing,
10
man,
to
dude.
11 years.
I know it's your thing.
It's not necessarily our thing. What it is that we did that for 10 to 11 years with graphic novels.
Yeah.
And the single issues, 10 to 1 in terms of sales.
I'm glad, because that is,
and I mean readers, not necessarily. Yeah,
that's shining a spotlight on like creators. I'm glad. I just don't.
Because you're not a fan of the single issue comic.
Well,
you like the bookshelf
right now,
type stuff
I'm not,
at this
but
point?
I'm really not a fan of newsprint. I do like, again, I'm a fan of Downcast. What's the other guy that did the? It's the woman who is a police person who, geez, what? Please help me. He's like, she does Tinseltown. Yes, I like that guy. He did a graphic novel. Yeah. No, that's just my format.
Well, do you have all of the Alterna graphic novels? Because I only ask because the reason that we went completely away from that, at least at the publishing level, is because most people didn't buy them. Most people bought the single issues, though.
I only have the bandwidth for so much, so I'll leave it at that. It's for no better reason than that, like, it's like I have certain writers that I follow, certain things that like immediately pop up on my radar, and then trying out something new, I'm more likely to I don't know, I'm not attracted to newsprint. I have a lot of your things.
When did you start reading comics? Did you always read them with the more glossy
in the
and
90s
paper?
I'll say in the 90s. That and I appreciate you asking that question. In the 90s, and like, I didn't have a jumping on point because I liked Batman, and I liked Batman movies, and then I liked Batman the cartoons, and then I liked
like the animated series.
What's that?
Batman the animated series.
Yes. I chose to pick up the Elseworlds titles and the one-shots, which were like the prestige format, before I started picking up floppies. And then I went to floppies. So like, I went to that, but then like, the thing is now it's like, you can only have so many long boxes or short boxes before it's time to just like feel like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? So I buy omnibus and paperbacks and like, and hardcovers, and like, and I get excited about the new IPs though. That's the part, is like I get excited about the new IPs like you and others, and the format means a lot to me. That's a big deal to me.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
that
Well,
the trade dress
that's
is
the thing
right.
is, see, I've put the graphic novel aspect now into the hands of the creators. So if the creators want, they can put their stuff together as a graphic novel. The way, like, we're doing it with Downcast, where Downcast is coming out first through Clint, and then we reprint them and put them out as single issues. Every single creator at Alterna is free to do that. They can put out their graphic novels if they want, either before or after, and then we'll put out the single issues. I'm proud and happy to be a republisher of some, if not all, of the titles. Personally, for me, with something like King Cryptid, I'm not putting out a trade of that for 10 years. So if someone's trade waiting, it's not going to happen for 10 years. And when I do that, I'm going to actually take a survey, because we're going to have about maybe 50 issues or so at that point in time. And I'm going to ask the readers for essential King Cryptid trades, because most of them are ongoing, one and done, episodic kind of self-contained issues, very old school comics. What were your favorite issues? Give me the numbers. And the top 5 are going to be turned into a trade. It's not technically the way that people do it, but for me, it's about the single issue process. It's about that way of storytelling. Someone like you might go, okay, I'll see you in 10 years. And that's the way it is.
Well,
but for most people, it's going to be different.
Here's this part, though. It's Eric Canetti releases his, like, whatever, maybe 60-something page single issues in hardcover format. And I'm like, oh my goodness, sign me up now. Sign me up for, like, more than one. And this, again, like, it's just like, I'm an adult, I got a bookshelf. I'm kind of done with short boxes, and that's where I'm at, so, and I feel like the comic audience, I don't know.
Sorry,
like,
I'm just laughing because of the adult part.
Yeah. What would you?
Not to say that you're not an adult, just to more or less say that I hope we don't have any children watching tonight.
Sure. Yeah. That's the thing too. Like, so where are you getting new readers? Like, if I've grown up, I did my time with floppies. Where are you getting the? And now I buy like keys, and I even hate buying keys these days, because the whole thing that dictates the value is whether they're slabbed. That's not fun. And
well, that's not necessarily true. A
little bit. I follow it, so it's like, I kind of want.
It definitely augments the value, and in some cases, it creates a whole entire false collector market. It's horrible.
Hate it,
But it's one of those things where. What happened in the issue is what made it valuable, which is, I think we've gotten so far away from that in terms of mainstream comics. But at the same time, I don't know, there's never really been too much of an uptick when it comes to graphic novels in terms of the resale, unless you're talking about like something iconic.
So, do you think there's an age demographic that dictates that?
I think yes and no. I think the comic industry overall had a really great chance to use the graphic novel format to tell complete Elseworlds, outside of continuity style stuff that appealed to adults, because they'd be pricier, so obviously kids couldn't really afford them and that kind of thing. And they could have really explored with a different format. But along the line, there became the trade paperback, where all of a sudden every single story arc, and at first it wasn't that way, but eventually every single story arc was written for the trade. And that's where things went completely off the rails.
And also, I mean, this 100% escaped my brain, because this is not the world I live in, but isn't that what's going on with manga and YA now? It's just big collected, volumes.
Well, the price point's a bit different, because isn't most manga around like 10 to $15?
Not
tops?
Sure. I'm just saying, like, the reader experience.
The bigger ones, probably not. But...
The reader experience, though. Think about that. Isn't that just like, isn't it nicer to, like, to carry around? Like, I don't know, like, I know we're getting off, like,
well,
we're
you
going
can't,
a lot of directions right now.
Once you start having, well, that's where it goes to like paper quality of things too, because if you start having like a hardcover, you can't exactly, that's going to be something you got to put in a bag and things like that. But if you're talking about like cardstock, because a lot of single issues nowadays are like cardstock covers and thick paper and everything else, it's not exactly conducive to rolling them up, putting them in your back pocket and call it a day. And then you get the whole collector market, which is, it's weird because most comics are near mint at this point in time. It's very odd you're going to have a modern comic where the condition really has affected the collectability the way it did with so many other previous comics from decades ago. But with an alternate comic, I mean, they could take a beanie, you could roll these things up, and it's actually still going to be perfectly fine. You know, if you cram it and stuff it into your pocket, it's a different story, but you can't do this with any other comic that's on the shelf and then still have it and it's fine. So when comics kind of left, everything like that, it kind of became everything so much about the paper format, the condition, everything else, that so much of the story, the character, etc., became secondary, as opposed to the doesn't it look nice though? And not even doesn't the art look nice, but doesn't the thing itself look nice? And then that's where it, for me, as I don't know, the way I am, I look at that and go, I don't care. I don't care if this comic is on napkins. If it's a great story and it's on napkins, I want to read it. But for some people, they go, well, I need it to be a hardcover. I need it to be really nice paper or this or that or whatever. You know, or it's going to kind of furnish my home in a way with, you know, with a bookshelf. And I get that part of it too. But at the same time, as someone running a business and as a storyteller, single issues just speak to me. Whether they speak to someone else or not, that's just what it is. But as a business person, if the graphic novels really sold through the roof and the single issues really didn't, we'd be going back to graphic novels next week.
Who are your three favorite writers that are on the shelf right now?
On my shelf, it's usually
No. Walk to the comic store. On the shelf right now.
Oh, right now.
Favorite writers. Yeah.
Current, modern?
Yeah. No, not artists, because we know what's going on with artists.
Writers.
Artists are dark. Art is in a dark place if you go to the direct
market. Are you asking
me
for a modern day writer?
Yes. But he can be around for 30 years, 40 years, I don't know. Like, you know, they're still doing it.
I'll tell you who I seek out. I seek out Claremont, Byrne, and Dixon for my writers, generally speaking.
But they're not on the shelf.
Exactly. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, so we gotta like distill some of this stuff so we can say what next. You know what I mean? Like, so we can criticize
what's
our
next?
own work.
What's next for me is not on the comic shop rack at this point in time.
But Chuck Dixon's working. You know, Mike Barron's working. You know, so that's what's next. You know, so we have to, but. These guys ain't getting any younger, you know. So like,
that's I think what kind of we've come full circle, because that's kind of what the whole point of I think this entire thing is basically growing that next crop, because that's what it should have been the whole time. It should have been a farm system within it, and it kind of was for a while at the big two, and then it turned into that level of they're outsourcing left and right all over the place. And now it's really, once the corporations have sunk their teeth into it, it's turned into the bottom line and make as much profit as you possibly can. And if we don't make profit, we're going to at least screw everyone else from making a profit. We're going to flood the market because we got deep pockets because we're making money from the IP in other forms. If they had to just make their money from the comics, you'd see great comics starting next week. But that's not the case. They got to make money from the IP. You look at the merchandise that they put out there. The coloring books have classic art. The gift wrap paper has classic art. They got the stuff that sells and has sold for decades. They're not going to start putting, So it's one of those things where you're talking about, you know, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez forever and ever and ever on DC merch. It's going to sell. It's going to fly off the shelf to the point that now McFarlane is bringing back that Superpowers line and making it look the way that, you know.
How funny is that too?
Yeah.
Like McFarlane's the rock star, but no, he hasn't made his way on lunchboxes yet though, has he?
But that's the thing, is that merchandise wise they know what appeals to the masses, but for some reason they reject putting any of that into the comics.
Like, I have greeting cards with like I think it's the Jose Garcia Lopez art, like with the Joker on them and stuff. I bought a long time ago. Yeah, I mean that's fun, man. See, that's like things used to be so fun, Pete. Now go ahead.
Yeah, but okay, so Nico says because people want to collect quality items, that's why they want the hardcovers. Again, though, what I'm saying, though, is that if you put so much emphasis on the form factor, you end up losing sight of what's actually between the covers, the hardcovers themselves.
Okay.
So some people go, oh, it's quality because it's a hardcover.
What if
False.
people write for the hardcover though? Like for instance, um, Rick Remender, Jonathan Hickman, shit, like okay. Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker are doing every 3 months. They do a hardcover that's like 60 to 80 pages for this Reckless series. Brubaker's my favorite writer. Sean Phillips blocked me on Twitter. Never had a bad interaction with him, but whatever. But I'm just saying, like, and they put a
Well,
book
that's a whole
plate out.
different can of worms with all of that.
This is a whole different can of worms. But I'm just saying, that's a nice format. You know, instead of doing floppies, they moved away from floppies. Now every 3 months they release a hardcover. That's like basically what Eric Canetti is doing. You know, and Eric Canetti kind of like slowed down though.
And again, though, every single decision made, if they want to do it like that, it gains a customer or loses a customer. So if they want to put out just hardcovers, it loses customers who prefer it on floppy. If they put it just on floppy, it loses customers who would have just wanted the hardcover. So if they see whatever they want to do, but then they also have to have, as a creative person, hopefully some kind of vision towards it. So if they envision it being that way, it should be a hardcover. It should look like this. It'll look like that on the shelf. That's part of it. Hopefully that's part of it. It's not just every decision is only based in making money. And if that's part of it, which it probably is, then that's probably why they're telling their stories the way they are. So that every single thing there's different decision making that goes into it. Does it mean there's a customer gained or lost? Yeah, every single step of the way. But at the same time, if we run around trying to appeal to every single possible demographic that there is, we're going to end up in the state of corporate comics, where it's all watered down, everything complete. You don't know what the hell it is, who the hell it's for, and that's what leads to that. So that if these guys have a vision and the customer knows what they want and that's what they like, amen, good for it. And that means that some people are going to read certain things and other people are going to read other things. So good.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is good. Did I say Clinton Robert now? What European? Yes, European format. I like that. Yeah, I like that. I agree with that. Brubaker kills it. Okay. Well, people are saying things. People are saying things based on what I said. So that means I'm smart a little bit right now.
They're in the conversation with you. But speaking of which, the conversation, unfortunately, I do have to end it. I gave you 12 minutes over time. I gave you 12 minutes over. That's it for the show. I got to get back to doing what I do, which is I got to start printing labels and packing up comics because people wait on their orders. But Jasper, thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Good talk, Pete. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, man. Take it easy.
Have a good one. Take care. Bye.
Take care. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. And there's a lot to soak in with the conversation of this evening's episode. Really appreciate you guys being here. And man, oh man, I think I'll leave it with this. I know there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the world of everything nowadays. Goodness. But I don't think that it's without saying that people are not putting in the work and the effort to get us out of it. Whether it's myself, some of the creators watching, some of the creators that are out there that you support, and also yourself as a reader, as a customer. Because without you guys, we could be doing all of this stuff for nothing, for no reason whatsoever, for nobody. We'd be the tree falling in the forest and no one hears it. Did it make a sound? Yeah, it did, but no one was around to hear it and talk about it. So did it really matter? So thank you guys for supporting it. Thank you guys for making sure that this kind of stuff does happen. Because it's so important that we not just acknowledge the fact that there's people putting in the time, the effort to create these things, but that there's people actually supporting it too, and spreading the word and talking about it and enjoying it. And also, if you're not enjoying it, talk about that. Goodness gracious. If you guys read King Cryptid and you've got questions, when that comes out in a couple months and you've got questions or even criticisms, you can bet your ass I'm going to thank you at least for reading it. And goodness, to me, when we end the conversation on these things, when we become afraid to express how we feel about things, I think going back to sports, I've loved teams in my life and have been in the stands as a ticket holder and have cursed them out. Because why? Because I know they're capable of doing better of being better. I've seen them do better. And you know when they're bringing their A game, and you know when they're not bringing it. And it pisses you off when they're not bringing it. Why? Because you're disappointed they're not living up to their potential. So when you see people out there and you think they're not living up to their potential, keep them honest, keep them in check. You know, it's a game that we all have to play. I have to play it with myself all the time, and there's people even that come up and say, oh, you know, I was disappointed in that, or, you know, they'll address something or whatever. I appreciate that. Or if there's a gaffe or a screw up. A Bronze Age kid mentioned it tonight, talking about things in terms of I was helping him out with a problem because I had messed up on something. Go in, tell me, bring it to me. I'm a human being. I'm not going to be perfect, you know, but I'm here for the conversation. I'm here for that. And good Lord, help us. Please help us if we get to a point where we cannot have conversations anymore. Nothing good comes from that. So thank you guys. Really appreciate you being with us tonight. And like I said, a lot to soak in with this episode. Everybody take it easy. I got to pack up orders. Have a good night, everyone.